Hello, my name is Gary, and this is the Beach Creek Design video series. Today I want to talk about dogs in the shop. Wooden bench dogs, to be exact. I like using wooden bench dogs because they hold well, they don't damage your tool like brass or steel will if you run into them, and they're fairly easy to make. All you need is some wooden dowel and a handsaw. I made this one a little while ago, but it still needs to go back to obedience school. It's still not obeying me very well. Stay. See what I mean? Well, I hope you'll join me while I demonstrate how I make my wooden bench dogs. I make my bench dogs out of 3/4 inch dowel. I usually cut them about 4 inches long. The dog face from the end of the dowel down to the cross cut is 3/4 of an inch tall. The cross cut's about 1/4 inch deep down here. Now I cut this at a slight angle so that when the bench dog is in place, it will actually hit up here first. As the fibers compress and this deflects back a little bit, it will eventually contact the whole face. But most of your pressure is going to be right here at the top of the bench dog. And what that does is it tends to push back and down on your workpiece, and it actually holds your piece better than it is down here. If it's straight up and down, once this starts to deflect back a little bit, all your pressure is going to be down here at the bottom. And when that happens, your part can tend to rise a little bit. So we want to put an angle. It's about 5 degrees. It's not very much, but it's just enough so that your part will hit up at the top first. Now also on my bench dogs, I cut a saw kerf all the way down one side. The purpose for that is I use some stainless steel spring wire, which you can purchase from most any industrial supply house. McMaster-Carr, Granger both carry this stuff. And my groove is 1.5 times the diameter of my wire. I drill a hole about 3/8 up from the bottom, and I bend my wire so that it fits down in here. Place the end of the wire in the drilled hole. Now I have a spring-loaded bench dog. This thing will now obey me. Stay. Obedience school worked in this case. Now once you place this where you need it to go, you put your material up against the dog. It's going to stay where you want it while you're clamping up your material. First operation that I normally do is cut the dog face. We'll lay that out and cut it now. Okay, I make my bench dogs out of 3/4 inch hardwood dowels. I cut them about 4 inches long. You can get hardwood dowels. They're usually beech or some similar species, or you can get maple dowels. Both work very well. First thing I usually do is I'll come in here about 1/4 inch over from the edge and just put me a mark straight across. That's about 1/3 of the way across. Then I'll come down here, right off this edge here, I'll come down about 3/4 of an inch, put me a mark. I'll come to the other point on the other side, come down about the same, put me a mark. Mark it off there, mark it off there. Doesn't have to be too precise, you just want to get close. you can get it pretty close to where you want. First thing I do is I'll do the cross cut, establish the depth of my when I start the face cut. Alright, once I get the cross cut done, now we'll come in and cut this angle here. When we start our cut, we're going to start to this side of the line at the top, because we're going to undercut it back towards our side line at the bottom. So I'll come stay about a 1/16 of an inch to this side of the line. I'll cut down to the cross cut. Once that's been done, I usually take a chisel. You've got a rough saw cut right here. I usually take a chisel and just lightly clean up that face. That way I've got a nice smooth face here. This face down here doesn't matter. It's not gonna see anything. You don't rest anything on it. This is your working face right here, and that's the one you want. It's going to be against your material, so you want it to be fairly smooth. Okay, we basically have the bench dog itself done. You've got a little bit of angle back. This thing will work very well. A little sanding. I usually put some boiled linseed oil on them. Once they're dry, I'll sand them down and wax them. Waxing keeps any glue and stuff like that from sticking to them. Next step is to put the saw kerf in for the spring. So I'll come in here. You've got your dog face right here. I'll come in right behind it. A bit. And just draw me a line right down the side of the dowel. Just gives me a guide. To create a saw kerf. Come in here. Once you get your kerf established all the way down, you can take it down to about 100 thousandths, just shy of 1/8 of an inch. Or if you really want it, 1.5 times the diameter of your wire. Now this wire is 51 thousandths, so about 3/16, I'm at 3/32 would be plenty deep. I cut it to about 1/8 of an inch, so a little shy of 1/8. I have a stair saw. I can set the depth of the cut. Once I've got my established kerf, I can follow it. And it gives me a consistent depth all the way across. Just makes it a little easier. You don't really need it, but you can, if you've got it, why not? Now what we have to do is we've got to widen this groove. The kerf on this saw is less than the diameter of my wire, so it will not fit into the groove yet. So what we'll have to do is widen this groove out. We need to open the kerf just a little bit, so we'll take a little saw, hold it on an angle, and widen the bottom of the groove. And we can come in with some sandpaper. It's close, but not quite there. Now it's fitting in, still a little tight, but we're almost there. Now we have a loose fit in our groove. The next thing we need to do is drill a 1/16 of an inch hole, approximately 3/8 of an inch from the end of the dowel, into the groove. We'll come in here about 3/8 up. Drill our hole. Now we can get our spring into the hole, line it up in the groove. Now we've got our spring loaded dowel. Only thing left to do is put a little coat of boiled linseed oil. I usually coat everything except this face here. Wax everything except this face here, and you're good to go. Next I'll show you how to make the spring. This is my stainless steel spring wire. It comes in various lengths. You can get 1/4 pound, 1/2 pound. This is a 1 pound spool. The diameter on this is 0.051. It's 51 thousandths in diameter. It's about the right size for what we're doing on these bench tops. The length that we need for this is about 3 3/4 of an inch long. The only tools we're going to need are pair of side cutters to cut the wire to length, and just a pair of regular slip joint pliers, and we can go from there. So my length is about 3 3/4 of an inch long. Cut it off. The natural curve from the spool is just about what we need. It's approximately a 3-inch radius. So if the wire you have is straight instead of curved like this, you can find you a can or something and just get that radius, something similar to this. Not really critical so long as it protrudes and you know, gives you a little spring action on your bench dowel. First thing you want to do is grab about 3/8 of an inch. You want your wire to be pointing straight down. You want to bend it down so that now you've got a little over a 90. This is what parts that's going to go into the hole that we're drilling in the side of the dowel. Now the other end, it's gonna, if you leave it like this point's going to dig down into the wood and it's not going to want to spring properly. So what I normally do is I'll come up here an inch or so and just put me a little bit of a kink in it. Then I'll come down about a 1/4 inch from the end, keeping everything in line, and I'll kick it up. And I think I kicked that one up a little too far, but we can bend it back into shape if we need to. So what we need to do is we take this end that we bent first. It goes into the hole. This end goes on the other end. Looks like I got one. I made it a little bit too long for this one. Step a little bit off the end of it. Okay, and that's pretty much all it is to it. We've got our spring-loaded bench dog. Drop it in, slides right on in. Main thing, if when this gets compressed, if that end sticks out the side, you've overbent it. You just have to bend it back down just a little bit, because you don't want anything protruding out the side to catch on anything. But that is my spring-loaded bench dog that I use all the time. I hope you've enjoyed this video. You can catch me on at my website, beachcreekdesign.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all the usual places. Thank you very much. I appreciate you watching. Have a great day.